So you can see the new design obviously has a bunch more surface area in the front of this moment of effort. This is basically the fulcrum. It's the center point which the whole rudder pivots. And having just a small portion like this, less about 10% of the whole entire surface area of the rudder, it's actually gonna, the water, what's gonna happen as it's coming through the bottom of the boat, if you turn it just slightly, the old rudder, you'd have to move the entire rudder, the water's hitting the rudder, and you're trying to force the water against all this surface tension. Now the displacement on this vessel is 2,400 pounds. You're obviously not seeing 2,400 pounds of force on this rudder because the boat is buoyant, but at a speed of like 5 knots, 7 at the fastest, you're seeing a lot of pressure of water. And then you have about a 3-foot tiller. So you have some counterbalance and some leverage. However, you're just muscling the entire weight of the boat. But the cool thing about with this new design, when you put a little bit more material in the front of the rudder, now you have the water, if it's coming on, and you turn it just slightly, the first thing that they hit is this forward part of the rudder. So it almost wants to force the rudder to turn this direction. And then you have the trailing 80% of the rudder. Now the water's hitting this rudder this way, so it wants to force it back straight. So now what you have is this counterbalance force that perfectly balances the rudder. So up top on your tiller, you have the force turning it this way, and then you have the water hitting the back, flipping it back this way. If you kind of go too far in the other direction, same thing. Water wants to push the rudder more, the water hitting the back wants to correct it. And then I still maintain this type of wing aerofoil shape, that it cuts through the water and it tapers off in the end, so it creates a little bit of lift. So it's actually less pressure on one side and the other, and it counters that in the opposite direction, so it's almost like a pulling sensation. So the amount of effort is literally just a fingernail can push this in either direction. It's perfectly balanced. It's awesome, especially when I'm just moving up to the front of the cabin. I can just let go. If it's a windy, with the motor chop, it's a different story because there's a lot of turbulence right here, and the water wants to do a lot of different things in the back because you got the turbulence from the prop over here. And then you have this negative pressure over here, so it kind of wants to do this most of the time, and so gradually it will turn in one direction or the other. But when you're sailing on a steady course with a steady wind speed, you can kind of just leave the rudder in place, and it just, with the water rushing on both sides of it, it's going to want to go straight. Kind of upset that I didn't do this 10 years earlier. It is hot out there. The high today is 101. The reason I came out today is because in the next few days, by Thursday, it's going to be 111 degrees out here. There's not a lot of wind today. There's probably about 6 miles an hour. And now it's to launch it, and that's the whole stress. The launch ramps are the most fun part of sailing, or just boating in general. The interesting cats that just live around the launch ramp, it's got to be the most stressful time. There could be easily reality shows made about just launch ramp drama. There's already this guy that's kind of just walking around my boat. He's just checking it out. This is the cool thing about anybody that's out here. they're just interesting in what kind of rig you got. It's just like, you know, everybody wants to see what you're working with, which is the fun part of it. But the stressful part is always trying to navigate, you know, sometimes as many as 20 boats, and nobody really knows how to help or wants to help. Whew. So that wasn't so bad. I had a nice old gentleman come and help me out who used to own a Catalina 22 in Hawaii. It was really busy, so I didn't really have a chance to set up the tripod on the dock like I wanted to. But I parked the trailer. I got his boat out around in front of me so he can get out of here. A tiny little dinghy, basically, little fishing pontoon boat. Motor is warmed up and it's getting busy, so I'm gonna get out of here. So now I've taken the opportunity to take advantage of this shade at this covered dock. This is Las Vegas Boat Harbor. I'll give a pan on the water. It's 101 degrees out there. So what I'm doing basically is just kind of rerunning some lines. It always looks like a spider web and a knotted mess, but each one of these ropes on a sailboat does something particular. Usually it's trimming the sail to get the most efficiency out of the sails. But what I was doing is just moving ropes that get kind of tangled on one side of the boat to the other. Fascinating thing, the boats coming out of the harbor. It has a rush hour just like everything else.